Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing a powerful Shadow Charizard team that you can use to get wins in the Open Great League. Now, this is not a team that I created. This team was created by former Pokemon Go World Champion M.E. Weedle. It features Cradily as the lead to be the bulk of the team, and two Glassy Sweepers in the back with Close Combat Primeape and Shadow Charizard. There's been some fierce debate over which Charizard fast move is better, Ember or Dragon Breath. While both are amazing, initially I preferred Dragon Breath, but after using this team, I think that I prefer Ember. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's get to destroying teams with Shadow Charizard. Off to a great start in game number 1 as we pick up a very winning lead, Cradily into Florges. My opponent is going to be safe switching into Fearow, and I'm more than happy to put up an early shield. My goal in this matchup is not to play it out fully, but rather, I want to try and get all of my opponent's shields and then aggressively send in Shadow Charizard. There's very few Pokemon in the game that are scarier with a shield advantage than Shadowzard, so my plan here is a pretty simple one. After no shield in the first drill pack, I shield the second, force both shields, and now it's time! Let's send out Shadow Shiny Charizard! They will fire off a drill pack, and I'm of course going to be shielding. There's the switch out into Florges. Shadow Charizard is going to be winning charge attack priority over that Florges, and you already know, it's a Shadow Blast Burn. They are not going to be able to survive. My opponent, they are completely energy dry on the Fearow, so they're forced to send out Furret. And Furret's about to get blasted into orbit by a Blast Burn. Blast Burn barely misses the knockout, but I switch into the Primeape and sneak through a Karate Chop as I get the catch. This is a very important energy head start, as now I can outpace the Fearow that is energy dry and make it to this close combat. Close combat will easily knock out the Fearow, and then all that's left is 1 HP on the Furret, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, and we see a Core Breaker on the lead, Cradily into Clodsire. Now, Clodsire has a winning matchup against this entire team. So the question is, how do you play out of a Clodsire lead matchup? Well, the main goal is going to be to use Cradily to debuff Clodsire, try and get it as low as possible, and then hope that either Primeape or the Shadow Charizard will be able to sweep in the back. I'm honestly not sure of what is the most optimal way to play out Cradily into Clodsire. I really liked the double Rock Tomb into Grass Knot play pattern, because if you double Rock Tomb, they can go for an Earthquake here, but it will not be enough to pick up the knockout. My opponent actually goes for a Stone Edge, recognizing that the EQ would not have been enough to KO, and I will go for the Grass Knot. Grass Knot is going to get them low, and because they went for the Stone Edge, I can actually just stay in and force them to throw. If they went for the Earthquake, I believe they can poison this thing down, so I would have thrown the Grass Knot and then looked to switch into the Primeape, but they're at -2. So that means even an Earthquake, which normally does a lot of damage to Primeape, I'm actually pretty okay surviving. Out comes a Shadow for Alligator, and it's time. Let's go for the Close Combat. Close Combat is going to connect. I switch into the Charizard, but I make a critical error. I waited too late to click on the Charizard to switch in. As a result, I got 1 turn switch instead of 0, and that cost me a fast move sneak. Now that is not a game error, that is entirely on me. I needed to click that button faster. So now I have a Shadow Charizard up 2 shields, in comes Meowscarada, and they make a very nice air cutter catch onto the Clodsire. I'm going to be fully undercharging and getting a nice Ember down. I do have so much loaded energy on this Charizard, and I do still have a pretty healthy Primeape. The air cutter is going to be shielded. I'm going to farm up just shy of their Night Slash. They now have the Night Slash. I predict they're going to stay in. I throw one more. We get the catch onto the Primeape, and I think that should seal it. As they go for the Night Slash, it will not knock out. They get the farm down, but they do not have enough energy to make it to their Night Slash. Shadow Charizard makes it to the air cutter. Air cutter easily going to be knocking out the Meowscarada. I definitely could have played that game a lot cleaner, but man, Shadow Charizard, it's just too much fun. We've got some spice on the lead in the next match, leading Cradily into Runerigus. Runerigus not going to throw right away, instead going to look for an overfarm. They're going to be shielding up the Grass Knot. I'm going to overfarm, and I get a catch on what I'm hoping is going to be a Rock Tomb onto the Primeape. In the Great League, Runerigus typically runs Brutal Swing and Rock Tomb, which means they would actually be completely walled. So by getting that Soul Reed catch, I now have a bunch of stored energy on the Cradily. I'm already up a shield, and now I get to boost my damage up with a Rage Fist as they send in Corviknight. Corviknight's not going to like a +1 close combat. That's going to be devastating damage. Primeape, because I have the rank 1 Primeape, I could have actually held on to make the Rage Fist. That forces my opponent to throw an Air Cutter. And now I bring in the Charizard. Charizard going to look for a farm down. Air Cutter is a rare move that Charizard can actually survive. They get the boost, but sand attacks are still never going to do a lot, and we predict them throwing their charge attack, and we get the catch onto Credilli. Credilli now going to make the Grass Knot. Unfortunately, Credilli will be losing charge attack priority to the Runerigus. Runerigus goes for the Rock Tomb. It will not be enough to take the knockout, and now I get to return fire with the Grass Knot. Grass Knot lands, taking the KO. In the back is Shadow Typhlosion, and this game is over because Shadow Charizard will be able to make it to the back-to-back Blast Burns. Blast Burn is resisted, but this is a Shadow Charizard. I don't care how healthy that Typhlosion is. Typhlosion's not making it out alive. Blast Burn lands, down goes Typhlosion. We get the win and the True Shield flex. We've got some spice from the opponent in the next match, leading Credilli into Como-O. I save switched at a Primeape, answered with a Shadow Tentacruel, and oh my goodness, my opponent's spice is absolutely off the charts. I'm farming up with the Primeape. They are on acid on the Tentacruel, so slower pacing than Poison Sting, but they have a lot more fast move pressure. I'm able to get some pretty nice damage onto the Tentacruel. I will be shielding up the Scald, but they don't have Scald. They throw an Acid Spray. That's bad because I lose so much health on this Primeape. That is really not ideal. The good news is I have a +2 close combat, and that's going to be guaranteeing a shield. It looks like my opponent did get one turn bring in here, so I'm actually just going to let them farm me down, so that way I don't get any extra fast moves that I shouldn't have gotten. In comes Credilli into the Como-O. This is not ideal, but realistically, I need to try and get some damage onto this Como-O before Charizard can close out the win. Well, I don't know for sure it's going to be a win. I haven't seen their final Pokemon, but I have hope that it's going to be a Corviknight, and if that's the case, then Charizard is going to absolutely feast. Upper hand is going to land, taking the knockout. In comes Charizard. Charizard making it to the Air Cutter. This pacing is unbelievable. Air Cutter is going to get the shield. Do we get the boost? We do not get the boost, and Charizard will need to shield. What do they have in the back? In the back, they have Linoone, the Spice, and I desperately need this to KO. I know Furret can survive. Does Linoone have similar bulk? Linoone hangs on, and that's gonna win the game for my opponent. What spice! Oh my goodness. You have to respect that, as unfortunately, we will lose that game. Speaking of spice, oh my goodness, the 3100s are bringing the spice today, as I end up leading Credilli into low kicks. Low kicks will be able to outpace, and X's or will hit for super effective damage. I immediately throw the Rock Tomb. They're going to make a catch onto Empoleon. Empoleon, it has an amazing defensive typing, but it is not the bulkiest. So, getting some damage on it is actually very, very valuable. Now I send in Primeape, and my goal with Primeape is pretty simple. Shield once and farm all the way down, as this energy is going to be absolutely terrifying to deal with. Speaking of terrifying though, in the back is Galarian Weezing, and that's one of the few things that can actually deal with this energy pretty well, and that's because they have the double resistance to both close combat and Karate Chop. So even though I've boosted my Primeape up so much, realistically, I still can't do a ton of fast move damage to it. I'm now at +3, they should throw right before I get the move, so I'm able to get a catch. I save the Primeape pretty close to a move, and I get a catch onto Credilli. They're going to go for an undercharge, send in low kicks will get a farm down. Now I can bring back in the Primeape, and Primeape will get to a close combat. The good news for me is Low Kicks' energy is going to be double resisted by the Charizard, because typically they're going to be running X-Scissor and Trailblaze. However, I have to shield something, so I will shield up here, and now my plan is a pretty simple one. Ember all the way down, exit with the charge attack loaded, because Shadow Blast Burn is absolutely criminal. Opponent realizes there is no longer a win con, and they will resign the match. Ooh, we've got an opposing Charizard in the next match, and they are also on Ember. I do know that Credilli should barely be able to survive a Blast Burn. You don't survive a Blast Burn particularly well, but you can hold on, so I no shield, and I end up calling an Air Cutter. That works out pretty nicely. Rock Tomb is going to be shielded. Normally, I would just let the Blast Burn go and then aggressively pivot into my own Charizard, but since they baited, I actually feel like playing the ones. I'm able to shield the Blast Burn. It is going to be a CMP tie, so I'm stuck throwing the Rock Tomb, but now I can guarantee a knockout or the final shield. They are going to get knocked out, and they bring in their own Credilli. Now this works out great. I'm always just going to be staying in here with the Credilli and playing out this matchup, because I can put the Primeape on it later on. My opponent should always throw before I get to another move. Very nice counting from them. They'll exit with a lot of energy, but it's Primeape time. In comes Primeape. My opponent is going to pivot. In the back is Gastrodon. and this is why we have close combat. Gastrodon would be a terrible matchup for the Charizard, but the close combat landing wins us the game instantly. Now I have a guaranteed win condition by fully sacrificing the Shadow Charizard. One thing that I really like about this team, and why I think it works so well, is because you can kind of choose, depending on what your opponent has in back, which sweeper you want to close out the game. We've had a lot of Shadow Charizard sweeps so far, but in this game against the Gastrodon, the best use of Charizard was to fully sacrifice it, and then Primeape will get the full Karate Chop farm down to secure the win. Credilli versus Zweilous in the next match. Zweilous will be able to outpace the Credilli, so I'm going to go for a Dark Pulse catch. So I go for the catch. Oh, my opponent not going to let that happen as they send out Corviknight. Corviknight will be able to hit for big damage with Air Cutter. Air Cutter lands, and now I decide to go for the Rage Fist. I know close combat will not knock out, so I may as well boost myself up with the Rage Fist first, and now I can make it to the close combat. Close combat, it's definitely going to leave a mark. Close combat is going to land picking up the knockout. So I have one switch advantage, which is nice, but the worrisome thing is that they have a ton of energy on the Zweilous, and that could be a problem. Zweilous lands the Dark Pulse on charge attack priority to the Rock Tomb, and once I get a shield here, presumably, it's time. Out comes Shadow Charizard. I know that they're not in Air Cutter range yet. I have to hope that I can Ember them into Air Cutter range. Zweilous does have some pretty nice bulk. And unfortunately, this Zweilous' energy that I failed to catch earlier comes back to bite me as they're able to force both my shields. I undertap, needing this Air Cutter to be able to deliver a knockout. Air Cutter lands, they hold on. In the back is Shadow Scizor, and I'm in trouble because I don't have a shield. A Night Slash would easily knock me out. I think they're going to do one in the move. I get the boost and the Ember lands, but they wait the turn. Good patience. They take the knockout. Had we boosted on our first Air Cutter, I think we could have won that game, but unfortunately, I just got outplayed. Very well played to my opponent. Terrible lead in the next match, Credilli into Empoleon. The safe switch at a Primeape answered with a Shadow Salamence. And this opponent is clearly having fun post-legend. Oh my goodness, you have to respect the Salamence pick. Salamence gets rocked by a Rage Fist, and Primeape up this much energy is going to be a problem. Boosting itself up, look at these Karate Chops. If I shielded, I could get a farm down here, but I'm just going to let this through. The Brutal Swing lands, they do get the farm down, and now I bring in Credilli. Credilli going to be hit with a move. It is going to be the Brutal Swing from the Salamence, and I'm looking to send in the Charizard, and they have ABA Steel, which means they just get swept by Charizard. Charizard still takes a ton of damage from those bullet punches because it's very frail, but unfortunately, once the Salamence was baited out, Charizard was free. We land the Blast Burn and take the win. Picking up a familiar lead, but a bad lead in the next match. The Credilli into Clodsire. My goal, as always, is going to be to go for the double Rock Tomb into Grass Knot, because if I go for the double Rock Tomb, as I mentioned earlier, that allows me to actually survive a second Earthquake, which is pretty nice. Although, do let me know down in the comments if there is a better way to play out this Credilli-Clodsire matchup, because if there is, I haven't found it yet, and what I haven't found is an entire line of Rock Bubbles that I just completely missed there on accident. So, that's really not ideal. They're going to be firing off an Earthquake, and I decided to play it a little bit differently. I save the energy instead of throwing it, and I just pivot into the Primeape. An Earthquake will do about half my HP. Last time I did end up letting it go. This game I'm actually going to shield it. My opponent sends in for Alligator, and here I think I should have just ripped a close combat, because my opponent has high incentive to call the bait, which is exactly what they do. However, because I'm up this much energy, I can make their life really, really difficult. Rage Fist after Rage Fist is going to be connecting, and I'm able to force a shield. I will be putting the shield right back. These Karate Chops are doing big damage, and now I'm going to go for the CMP tie. I want nothing more than my opponent to shield this, because if they shield this, I have Shadow Charizard up energy in the zeros, which is exactly where it wants to be. Down goes Primeape, in comes Charizard, and there's going to be a switch into the Clodsire. I bank a move for later, and I will switch into Credilli. I'm hoping that Grass Knot will be enough to knock out here, but it barely does not, and they exit with a move. That's going to force me to throw energy on the Charizard. A miscalculation on my part. I thought I could acid down after the Grass Knot, but I was unable to do so. Now my opponent is going to be waiting down their timer, and out comes Moltres. I'm going to farm up to 6, wait the turn. There is the catch attempt. They do not get it, and now it is Blast Burn time. Galarian Moltres has pretty good bulk, but it's not surviving. Shadow Blast Burn takes down Moltres, and we get the win. picking up a very nice lead in the next match, beating Credilli into Azumarill. The fact that the Azumarill is staying in means that they're probably core broken. Something in the back does not want to see, I would imagine, does not want to see Rock Tomb. Because a lot of the times, people won't run ABA weak to Grass, but they will run ABA weak to Credilli. So I'm able to get my opponent very low, and I'm just going to overfarm to the max and CMP tie with the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb is going to cover for a catch, but they're just going to let it go. And now out comes Drifblim. I think I should make the Rock Tomb, but I don't. It just knocks out, and suddenly I'm in a huge amount of trouble. This Glassy backline heavily relies on not being down energy. And I've just given this Drifblim a huge energy head start. I'll fire off the Rage Fist, they're gonna no shield, I send in the Charizard, but look at my health bar, my goodness, I'm getting deleted by these Astonishes, and this is where the double glass cannon in the back strategy can backfire. Now, I'm forced to go down a shield, and things are looking very tricky. I'm debuffed, and in the back is Diggersby, and there's just no way out. I'm a debuffed Shadow Charizard, I have very little HP, the Blast Burn is going to be no shielded, I can make it to an Air Cutter, but an Air Cutter is just not going to be enough damage. Air Cutter is going to connect, and unfortunately, a very winnable game slips away. How I could have played this better was the moment I saw the Drifblim, I should have aggressively pivoted into the Primeape, and then I think I would have been okay. Hopping into the final match, we've got a pretty nice lead, Credilli into Galarian Moltres. With this lead, and considering the backline that we have, I really like to no shield. They're always going to CMP tie with a fly, and that's pretty okay because I can always get a shield advantage and then aggressively send in the Primeape. So it's time. In comes the Primeape. Let's try and make their life uncomfortable. They're staying in, and I'm just going to win charge tech priority, and since I'm up a shield, I'm not going to be baiting. Close combat is going to land. Down goes the Moltres, and out comes Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion, not a Pokemon that I was expecting to see, but a pretty cool pick. Drapion will go for the Aqua Tail. I farm up a ton of energy, and I have a Rage Fist plus a close combat. I'm hoping they try and call the Rage Fist bait, but they do not. They're going to put up the shield and deny my energy. I always want to have Shadow Charizard up a shield if at all possible, because then I can convert that into a Shadow Charizard up energy. So I'm more than happy just to put up the shield and then just continue to farm, because I want Shadow Charizard to try and sweep. Shadow Charizard is going to farm up. Again, I wait the turn, making sure there's no catch, and I will go for the Air Cutter. Air Cutter delivers the knockout. They have Credilli in the back, and I'm so far ahead that this is just going to be a win. Blast Burn lands devastating damage. Look at the pacing. They can't even make a Rock Tomb before I get to the Air Cutter. Air Cutter KOs Credilli, and the Shadow Shiny Charizard gets one final boost. This team, I had so much fun with. It was unbelievable. I ended up winning a lot. I think I only had one negative set out of, I can't even remember how many sets I played, maybe 7 sets, and I was able to climb into the mid 3100s, and I believe number 115 in the world on the global leaderboard. So this team felt like a ton of fun. Shadow Charizard, it's an incredibly powerful mon. It's also a very technical mon, because especially with a double glass cannon strategy, being able to understand when you want to send in these glass cannons to try and maximize as much of an advantage as you can get can be very important, but man, when it works amazingly. And Emmy Weedle climbing to rank 1 in the world with this team, to me it honestly makes sense. It's a team that's very rewarding for good energy management and good resource management in game as well. Recognizing, okay, when do I throw this energy? When do I pivot out? And trying to set yourself up for a spot where either the Primeape or the Shadow Charizard can be up a shield, because both those Pokemon just have terrifying nuke moves, and both have the ability to boost themselves as well, and they already start with really high attack stats. So this team was a ton of fun. Unfortunately, I did not get a recording of the Bastiodon lead that I was able to beat. Against the Basti lead, the overall goal would be to immediately save switch into the Primeape and then try and stall out the mid-game matchup. Because if you're able to stall out the mid-game matchup and switch back into Credilli, ideally you would want to try and bait back out the Bastiodon with Credilli, debuff it, try and get it low, get the knockout with the Primeape, and then with Bastiodon out of the way, they're probably pretty weak to Shadow Charizard. The team that I ended up beating that had a Bastiodon lead, I believe, was Toadstool Torterra backline, and I was able to stall out the mid-game with Primeape, save it, pivot back into the Credilli to bait out the Bastiodon, and then once Credilli got KO'd, Primeape was able to take the knockout, and from there, Shadow Charizard was able to sweep. So it's definitely a tricky lead for this team, but I don't think it's unwinnable. But man, this team felt very powerful, and I think that both fast moves on Charizard are very usable. As I mentioned at the start initially, I was Team Dragon Breath, but I think I'm Team Ember now. The pacing on Ember is unreal, and especially with a ton of players relying on Pokemon like Corviknight because of their insane defensive typing, Ember just allows you a better matchup into those Mons, which I think is a definite plus. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.